Hey everybody, welcome to Winning at Work. This is Tony Moore, your host. This is episode 90 with Daniel Nicholson. He's the president and CEO of NadaMoo. As we head into Thanksgiving, so much to be grateful for. This podcast, the feedback, the guests, the reach, the influence, the messages, the great relationships that I've made and that other people have made through the podcast, I'm so grateful for. And I just want to give my gratitude to everyone this year. I've had over 50 food and beverage executives on the podcast as of this recording right now. And I am so pleased to introduce everyone to Daniel Nicholson. And Daniel has been in the plant-based space for well over 10 years before plant-based really was the darling of Wall Street and investors. When Daniel took over, he had a passion, he had a vision, he had a deep desire to give the world something better. It just so happens that he's able to do that through NadaMoo. What's really unique about NadaMoo is that this is a dairy-free ice cream based from coconut milk. And if you've not done much research into the benefits of coconut milk, this is a good time to do it. And you're going to learn a little bit more about that. You know, it's tough being a pioneer because you're out in front dealing with legal issues, dealing with the heavy burden of educating a marketplace. It's been made easier in recent years due to the enormous success of, say, Beyond or Impossible. The investments that they've made, the level of education that's occurred with the consumer has really lifted all boats. And NadaMoo has absolutely benefited from that. However, they stand on their own, and not just in taste tests, but industry-wide awards. NadaMoo is consistently one of those top 3, top 5 brands that everyone loves. The quality, the flavor, the consistency. And as you're about to discover, the leadership. I'm really excited for everyone to discover what makes NadaMoo one of those upcoming ice cream brands that is sure to disrupt the dairy world or the non-dairy world. And this is episode 90. That's pretty exciting. So we've got a kind of a milestone episode here. As we round out the content for 2021, I want to give you a heads up for 2022. I've already started recording 2022 guests, and we're just now in November of 2021. I've got enough content for the remainder part of 2021. I'm going to be changing the format. I'm going to be shortening the podcast length down to about 25 to 30 minutes. It's going to be difficult for me because I love to talk. I love to be curious and pull out even more information from my amazing guests. But people want to get right to the pith. Right to the point, get in and get out. Everyone knows my motto, act, learn, adjust, and this is exactly what I'm doing. Sit back and enjoy my great interview with Daniel Nicholson, the president and CEO at NadaMoo. Welcome to Winning at Work. I'm your host, Tony Moore, and today I have the CEO of NadaMoo joining me. Very excited to have Daniel Nicholson join me. This is one of the hottest areas in non-dairy is the plant-based food ice cream, and NadaMoo is certainly there among those extremely fast-growing companies. And in fact, Daniel was referred to me through one of his, kind of top industry advisors. We had a great little pre-podcast meeting. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation as we really dig into, how do you lead within a fast-growing company, particularly a plant-based company. Daniel, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Tony. I'm really excited to have this chat with you too.
Well, every time I meet people from Texas, they just have this attitude of everything's just larger than life. Is this kind of true for you too? Is that what we're going to have to put up with today? Is Texas is better in every category?
Potentially, man. Potentially. I am born and raised here in the state of Texas. I do have definitely have some Texas pride inside of me, but
I love it.
But at the same time, we're building a plant-based brand, so I think there is some complexity to my Texan profile for sure. But I am very proud of the state, and it's
as you should be.
Being born and raised here. Being born and raised here has absolutely been a central part of my life.
Well, and you went to school, University of Texas at Austin, and then you got your background, your undergrad in mechanical engineering, and then you went to business school from the Macomb School of Business. So you didn't leave, for college. That's good.
Yeah.
So just before we get started, because people are going to probably notice, I think you and I talked about this before too. Your accent is really unusual.
It's true. I don't have
I still can't figure it out.
Yeah, no. So I grew up in Laredo, Texas, which is right on the border to Mexico. Which has, it's almost like growing up in Mexico more than it is growing up in America in many ways, just because of the influence of the Mexican culture on the area. And I think that's what makes my accent different than most Texans.
That is awesome. Because this is just an audio podcast. So people are going to be kind of thinking, this is kind of cool. This is kind of a unique flavor here within Texas.
Yeah, and people, I think you even mentioned in one of our first chats, you're like, are you Canadian? People sometimes put me on Canada, which is actually pretty interesting. We're very much closer to the other American border, the
exactly.
one to the south.
You are 180 degrees opposite of Canada. Well, NadaMoo has made it in the news quite a bit. And every time I go out to do any kind of research about plant-based food, ice cream, or the non-dairy category, NadaMoo is always in that conversation. So I'm really thrilled to have the leader of the company here to talk about NadaMoo. Tell us about the company, the culture, the vision. It's a pretty exciting time for you guys as this market is really, really expanding.
Yeah. So I mean, first off, I think it's incredible that you've even heard of us, right? Like the way that we have built the brand over a 15-year period. We're going on 16 years of being in business. The company was founded in 2005. So as you can imagine, building a plant-based ice cream brand in the state of Texas back in 2005. Was a challenge right off the bat, right? This is dairy country. Our state is a very big agriculture state. And so for us to embark on this journey to create a more sustainable planet through, people's health and planet health through product. We had challenges right out of the gate, really trying to get people to understand way back in 2005, before the dairy-free movement, before the plant-based movement, really trying to get them to understand what is ice cream if there's no cow's milk in there. That was kind of the first thing that we were up against. But having the company founded in a city like Austin, and just having such a great tasting product that really most people, when they first try it, they actually think that they're eating traditional dairy ice cream. Like, we have such a good flavor profile, such a good creamy texture. And just great flavors. We create great flavors off of the bases that we've worked so hard to perfect over time. And so I think it's been over 15 years of building this brand, really being a pioneer in the frozen dessert, in the non-dairy frozen dessert category. And as we can all see now, as consumers in 2021. You can only imagine how much we have seen and how much we have experienced over that 15 plus year period. The way that the consumer trends have shifted drastically and dramatically, and now it's pretty much commonplace. It's commonplace for everybody to be at least thinking about weaning off of dairy in their diet, and for the more ambitious, kind of more, even more progressive consumer, people are working to consume more plants. And yeah, I think the amount of time that we've had to learn in this industry has really put us in a great position to continue to create value in a very fast growing category and industry.
Pioneers don't often get the credit because no one's following you at first, and you're doing all the heavy lifting. You feel like every day you're pushing through granite. It's kind of like when those first railroad tracks went down. It's backbreaking work. You're having to educate your market. You're having to source and look for the unique suppliers that you need to find, your ingredients that you absolutely have to have. And by the way, in honor of our call today, of our podcast today, I finished off another pint of NadaMoo last night. It was the cookies and cream.
Good work, Tony. Good work.
I did. I was digging around in the freezer, and I was like, aha. And I kind of just like shook it at my daughter, like, I'm finishing this one. Because it's still kind of warm out here in Atlanta. So it was a perfect way to finish after dinner. And I'm a flexitarian, by the way. So I think, I see the benefits, and I'm slowly kind of moving my way in that direction, substituting, things here and there. But back to the whole idea of being a pioneer, when you do the hard work, you're really learning the industry from the ground up. Now you've got this massive wave that's coming. You don't have to guess, right? You're organized. You've got everything ready to roll. You've got your culture, your vision, everything dialed in. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the culture, your vision for the company, just how big, how many different categories are you trying to expand into, or are you looking just to dominate in this kind of niche area?
Yeah. So first I'll touch on culture. I think, myself, when I got involved in the company in 2008, I was 24 years old. I was fresh out of undergrad. My first gig with the company was working the books. I started in the accounting department, worked right under the CFO, and was helping get everything organized on the back end. But because I started in the business so early, I think naturally younger talent gravitated toward the work that we were doing in the space. And I think that has really informed our culture moving forward. We're young, for the most part. We have some older team members as well. It's a great balance of youth and more skills and experience. We think that both are very, very important, especially if we're going to go out there and compete with some of the largest, kind of dairy ice cream brands in the country. And so, but culture is something that has been so important to us, and to our success building the company. That energy, the passion for really powering a more sustainable planet. Our product is lower in calories and lower in sugar and has zero cholesterol than traditional ice cream. And even when compared to some of our more direct non-dairy competitors. And so, like that passion, that youth, that energy, that authenticity that we have brought to the space for over 15 years, I think has been a great differentiation point for us. And that has really, kind of gotten us to where we are today. I'll touch on vision too. Like when I first joined the company.
Well, but before you jump to vision, I want to touch on the culture piece, because I'm listening to you. This is a purpose / mission based company.
Absolutely.
It is incredibly important that people that join the company they kind of feel like they're there for a reason. Yes, it's a job too. It's a job. It can be a career, but they at least know they're advancing a cause that's bigger than themselves. So you really find that, because you're attracting those type of people who believe in that vision, it's actually propelling the company forward because they believe in what the company is striving for.
Absolutely. As I touched on, I mean, it's been foundational. It's a foundational piece, of our success. Like really getting people to buy into to the work we're doing. Yes, we are an ice cream brand to the consumer on the shelf, but what drives us is so much more than that. We really we believe we are doing really, really great work and weaning people off of their dairy consumption practices.
Addiction, right?
Yeah. That's the better word.
It's an addiction to sugar. I mean, it's really what it is.
It is. That's exactly what it is. And we have had some specific food items forced on us for quite some time. Most of the time, we don't even know that it's in there. But because of that, our bodies, our microbiome, our guts craves those things over and over again. And if they're not good for you, compounded over time, it creates a lot of the health issues that are so apparent here in our country too. And I think all of that knowledge, all of that understanding for our team members is something powerful. And I think it's incredible when we have a chance to work really hard every day, to do something like you said that's just it's bigger than us, it's bigger than ourselves. I think there's so much power in that, and we look forward to continuing to attract very talented, very passionate people who want to align their values with the work that they do every day. And I think that's something that we're certainly providing as a company at NadaMoo.
Yeah, thank you for unpacking that a little bit more. So let's get to your vision, because that's the role of the CEO, is to set the course. And I know people would love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, since day one, I love the brand name NadaMoo. I love the products. I still think we have the best ice cream on the market, the best all around ice cream brand on the market. And the NadaMoo brand name, for me, as I touched on earlier, I grew up in South Texas, right on the border to Mexico. I grew up speaking English and Spanish. I'm of Mexican descent on my mother's side. And so for me, NadaMoo, it's the Spanish word nada, and moo, the noise that the cow makes, the sound the cow makes. And I loved that brand name. For one, it spoke to me. It resonated with me on a deeper level. And I love how descriptive it is. All it means is no dairy, right? And so since the beginning, when I first got involved and I was really, really excited about the ice cream, my mind, even, at the age of 24, fresh out of undergrad, I really saw, like, man, the opportunity with this brand, could go much further than just this ice cream product. And it's really nice to be sitting here today. We just got done with our board meeting on Wednesday, which is always good to get through those quarterly check-ins with our board. And it's just so great to sit here today, having had those initial visions and dreams when I first joined the company about the potential for the brand in other categories, for us to be sitting here today, ready to begin to launch some of these new products even outside of the frozen dessert space, right? And so we feel like we can very naturally and easily be a player in any traditionally dairy run category and just provide that great tasting, better for you alternative for the consumer that, again, we can incrementally continue to turn people away from their dairy addictions, continue to turn people toward a more plant-based lifestyle, so that we can all work together as people who power this planet. And, we want to power it in a more positive direction. We really feel like it's important to our sustainability here on the planet that we all love, for us to start making incremental changes and hopefully begin to accelerate the incremental changes that we are taking, because there is power in numbers, and we have really felt all along like it's our job as a brand to enlighten people, to show them how great things can taste without some of those ingredients that we've become addicted to over time that quite frankly aren't very good for us.
Well, and coconut milk is extremely healthy. There's many, many benefits. If you just go online and just research, benefits of coconut milk, there's, 10 or 15 areas that it's supposed to help increase or improve, areas of your life, your health, your hair, your skin, on and on and on.
Yeah, it has become such a popular ingredient for so many reasons. And the coconuts really are, they're super magical. How they grow from trees, they can drop on their own. I've read up where if a coconut floats out to sea, at some point it has the ability to float. And when it washes up on some other piece of land, that's all it takes to begin to spawn new growth of coconut trees on some new piece of land. And that's why coconut trees are always close to water sources. They need a lot of rainfall. So they're always in the tropics and they don't take any supplementary water in order to grow to be prepared for harvest. It's all natural rainfall that powers the growth of coconut palms. And it's just super natural, super powerful, has so many healing properties. And I think that's what's important to us. And in this plant-based movement, we need to begin to understand the power that can be unlocked through the consumption of fruits and vegetables that are so naturally harvested in our planet's soils.
Yeah, I wasn't really aware of how they propagated and just how totally natural the palm is. That's really cool. The industry that you're working in is quite large. From what I could tell, when talking about the trends in just overall dairy or just ice cream in general, your data may be a little different than mine. But I saw something in the neighborhood of 60+ billion in annual sales. Is that? Am I close? That is. I mean, there's all sorts of estimates that are floating around there. There's some global numbers, there's some domestic numbers, but yeah, I mean, the 60 billion is definitely a figure that I've seen. And when you bring in growth rates, when you bring in compounded growth rates, the writing is on the wall where the growth moving forward is going to be on the dairy-free and plant-based side. I mean, we talk to Captial. I talk to Captial people all the time that very clearly see that it's going to be important for them, even if they've been heavy dairy industry investors for the duration of their fund's existence. They have a clear vision now that they need to begin to invest in the more progressive sides of the category, because that's where all the growth is going to be. And also for value driven reasons, they also see the writing on the wall that we are on a crash course with the health of our planet. And if we don't start making some serious changes, and if they don't start putting their capital to work in ways that help drive us forward to a more sustainable place, they're not doing their job in the world. And I think it's really powerful when everybody is coming together at the same time to acknowledge and understand where we need to go from here. I think that's the only way that this is really going to work out, is if we all work together to make those consumption changes that will take us to a much, much brighter future. Some of these plant-based companies, they have taken on capital and they've gotten diluted, and it's helped them grow and expand their distribution and their manufacturing capabilities. I don't know what your plans are and, what your strategy has been to this point. If that's something you want to talk about, that's fine. But what I do see is that in the plant-based food ice cream category, all new launches of ice cream, 25% of all new ice cream launches are plant-based. That's enormous. I mean, if that doesn't tell the capital markets this is where to be, they're not paying attention to the trends, but apparently they are. Yeah, certainly. They definitely are.
To touch on there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money coming into the food and beverage industry, much, much more than when we first started. We think that's, it's positive. It means that everybody sees the opportunities and the necessity, actually, not just opportunities. These are necessary shifts that we are going to have to make in our food system, again, to propel us forward. But I'll say, over a 15-year plus period with the company, we've been very conservative with how much capital we have raised to continue growing the company. Mostly because we think it's just fiscally responsible to do so, to grow things over time, to be very intentional with how that money is put to work, and making sure that we can use that money to fund growth and new opportunities for the business. But I think, it's something we're pretty proud of, that over that period we've raised a fraction of the amount of money that some players that are coming into the industry, or almost before they've sold a single unit, they've raised, these ungodly sums of money, which kind of leaves you scratching your head sometimes. But I think we need to also, from a fiscal standpoint, we need to balance some of the craze with more practicality on the investment side. And I think we have been trying to kind of strike a nice balance. We're not closed to outside capital. We've done a Series A round and a Series B round, and we've aligned ourselves with some great capital partners. But yeah, definitely taking a much more conservative approach and making sure that we can kind of sit back and look at what everybody else is doing and how they're putting their money to work as they're raising capital too. But yeah, it's been a really, really interesting time to watch how the capital markets have been interacting with the CPG industry.
Yeah, it's really frothy. I haven't seen you on Shark Tank, and I hope I never see you there, because Mr. Wonderful would take 60%.
Yeah, if you see me on Shark Tank, we've done something wrong. You need to call me.
Don't. It might be fun to have the experience. Just don't take the deal.
Yeah, no, it's tough, and to those points, the sharks are out there. It's a real thing. We just got finished raising our Series B round, mostly in the middle of the pandemic, which was a very unique experience that I hope I never have to experience again. But yeah, in difficult times, when the market seems a little volatile or there's a little bit of chaos in supply chain, there can be a lot of very, very opportunistic capital out there. There's a lot of fear being passed around for very clear and obvious reasons. But yeah, I think it's important for entrepreneurs, for business owners to very cautiously, proactively, but cautiously navigate that capital raising process, because there's a lot of bad deals that get drawn up, and if you really do care about the work that you're doing and you want to continue to be a part of the growth and success of what you're building, you have to really navigate those potential pitfalls very cautiously.
That's it. And I'm glad you said that, because your motive is very different than the person who goes out and does all the fundraising and they've not made one unit. Totally different motive. And that's part of your culture. And that's also part of your leadership style. And why don't we dial that in a little bit, because you are leading a very fast growing plant-based food company. So you've had a number of years, you've gone through, I'm sure, up and downs with the economy and pioneering. So as it stands now, what can you teach us about leadership, particularly in a fast-growing plant-based food company?
Yeah, I'll say for one.
Do we have enough time? Right?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick on it, but
we'll have to do the condensed version, or we'll have to come back and do a long form, because I'm sure you've got lots of stories.
Yeah. There's so many. I took over the leadership position of the brand in just over 9 years ago. I'm going on a decade of leading the company. I was involved with the company through the last kind of housing crisis, the financial crisis back in 2008, 2009. So we experienced that. We were a very, very small brand at that time. In many respects, we still are. But to be, this is kind of my second crisis with the company, second massive global financial crisis to be at the helm of the company. And yeah, what really, I mean, there's, in my opinion, we all have to kind of find our own leadership style and how we bring ourselves together each and every day, wake ourselves up and just show up, like a big part of it is just showing up and being proactive and having that care and having that understanding of where you want to continue to move and how you're going to use your vision to continue to navigate all of these issues. For me, consistency is just key. It really is. I am not a seasoned executive. This is the only company I've ever run in my life. But everything that I've learned has been on the job, really just showing up every day and working with our team to solve each and every problem that pops up, be it small or be it large. And it's being proactive. It's being hands-on. It's being very available. It's talking to your people, listening to your people, and just making sure that everybody, as best as possible at every moment in the history of the company, that everybody is as aligned as is possible. People and personnel, you have a lot of different personalities within any team or organization, and really, finding ways to bring everybody together to get the best body of work out of your team is critical. And for me, it's not, I don't have a magic wand. I don't have an MBA from some Ivy League school. I have a mechanical engineering bachelor's degree, but it's so much more than that. Like I think learning on the job and giving yourself time to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and correct them moving forward. That's really how I have developed my leadership style. It's very proactive, very consistent, and very much, I'm very much involved. I'm involved because I care about the work. I've spent now over 13 years being involved with this brand, and it's very much a part of my life. And I think continuing to show your team how much it means to you and how far you are willing to go, how much you're willing to stretch yourself to continue to create results with the team is critical. That's kind of been my recipe. It's consistency, it's grit, it's fortitude, and just being able to continue to wake yourself up every morning and show up and get back to work.
Well, you said that when a problem comes, you kind of bring the tribe together and work with them to solve the problem. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the makeup of your executive team?
Yeah, so we have our executive team internally. Of course, our company is divided out. We have an accounting department. We have our ops department. We have our sales department, and we have our marketing department. It's really four key departments that run the business. And so we have a leadership member from each one of those departments on top of our two C-suite executives, the two executives of the company come together. We actually meet twice a month. We meet every other week to discuss the overarching issues within each department and really at that level, we begin to strategize and have communication around how to kind of move forward with solving whatever issues those are. But beyond that, I mean, we do have that hierarchy, but I think because our team is still also so very small, like you almost need to have hierarchy just so as to not have too much chaos, but the organization feels very, very flat, where every single team member has a voice at the table. We have open door policies. We don't always want to only rely on hearing from the leaders of each of those departments on what the issues are. We want to give everybody a voice and give everybody an opportunity to let us know what they are experiencing within their roles and within their departments and within the company at large. And I think that's important. It's important to balance, to really let the decision-making process happen across the entire team, or at least making sure that decisions are made with all of the available information, no matter where it's coming from within the organization.
Good. So you've got sounds like a 6-person executive team, plus you have the influence from the board.
Correct. And we meet with the board once a quarter. It's comprised of our main shareholders, our largest shareholders, which my family is still the largest shareholder, which I think is really nice. We're still a family owned and operated company, and I think that's been really important to us. But bringing those outside capital partners in also to provide strategic value and to be a great sounding board as we're making decisions is critical too. We have a 5-person board that's about to grow to 7 just through this last Series B round. We plan to bring in some independent directors to the board level to provide additional value with their skills and experiences. And so, yeah, that's really how we have a lot of autonomy. Our board thus far has given us a lot of autonomy on the day-to-day and month-to-month to manage and operate the business. And then we meet quarterly and provide them with an overview of everything that we're experiencing and kind of listen to their advice on, whether they would do something a little differently or whether they think we should be a little more focused on this issue. And yeah, it's a collective. It's a collective, and we're firm believers in valuing each and every stakeholder. We have to value their voice. We have to listen and use that information to make the best decisions possible for the greater good, not just for the good of the company, but for everybody involved, down to our customers, down to our suppliers. That's really the way that we think about continuing to propel our business forward.
So not only are you managing all the executive relationships, managing the board, and dealing with, raising money and dealing with the capital markets, you've been building a dynamic team, and obviously the culture there, your vision has helped you attract those purpose and mission-based people, and that's really helped fuel the business. But you're also dealing with the operational side. You still have to create delicious food. You still have to focus on operational excellence. So when you talk about, or when you think about leadership and helping those areas develop, how do you manage and influence the actual creation in the manufacturing of the food, which would tie into operational excellence? How do you put yourself in those situations?
Really, for me, it's again goes down to hiring the right people, and I mean, in a past life and much earlier stages of the company, I was literally at every single production run, because our products, speaking back to the point of consistency, for me as a leader showing up every day, consistency in our products is the most important thing, right? We have to show up. We're in a very consumer facing industry. So we have to show up every day for our consumer with quality and consistency. And the way that we've been able to achieve that over time is just by understanding that is our bread and butter, the bread and butter of our company, the bread and vegan butter of our company is definitely, quality and consistency of product. And if you have passionate people who love your product, who care about it, you put the people in the right places to to continue to ensure that as we grow, as we scale, that we don't take our sights off of the most important part, and that's the product. And again, I think that's where the people are so important, because as you scale the organization, not everybody is going to care about product the way you did when I was first getting going, and I was at the production run myself every single day that we were running product. I was there. I obviously can't do that. I can't do that all the time anymore. I have a lot more responsibilities on my plate. So you have to be able to delegate that vision and that passion for product to a new team member that loves the product the same way you do, and maybe even more as a straight ice cream consumer. And so I think that's where each and every team member, wherever they are within the organization, they have to love our product. They have to understand the value proposition of it. And if we don't take care of our products, it doesn't matter all the other great work and decision making we're doing. We're failing our customer. And at the end of the day, no matter what the board says, no matter what our internal team says, what matters most is what our customers say and what they think about us, and whether or not we are showing up for them each and every day and delivering the best product possible.
I believe you said you guys are using co-packers. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
What was that decision like? Or maybe you've always been with a co-packer, or is there ever a situation or a time where it might make sense for you just to take over and manage all your own manufacturing? Is that a concern, an issue, or?
So I mean, yeah, I'll just say we started with the co-packer model pretty early on. Like, I think it became clear that our founder did not, I mean, to make such a large Capex investment in your own ice cream plant is, especially when you're very small and not quite ready to scale, that's taking on a lot, right? Like, you're no longer a brand and a product. You are a manufacturer and you are a brand and a product. And so we've made a concerted effort over time to not worry about owning our own plant. We put a lot of value into our partnerships, our external partners, and we think it's important to not have all your eggs in one basket, because things happen, right? And we've been there before over time. We've had a co-packer say, hey, we just sold our ice cream plant and we can't make your product anymore because the new owner doesn't want to make a dairy-free product. And we're like, oh, well, now what do we do? And so we think the co-packer model is great because we can align ourselves with many partners throughout the country, as long as we can create quality and consistency in each one of these different ice cream plants. We feel very confident that we can insulate ourselves from potential supply chain issues that we wouldn't otherwise be able to if we were operating our own plant and now had the FDA and the USDA in our hair all the time inspecting our plant. It's just a whole nother issue. And I think people have to really be intentional about making that decision and go in eyes wide open with an understanding of what it means to own a plant and how you can actually pull yourself into a whole other business that maybe you didn't initially intend to be a part of.
You may give up a few margin points, but you can focus.
You can focus on brand.
Really focus in on what matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's not to say that the co-packer model will be for us forever, right? Like, I mean, in this day and time with all the labor shortages and supply chain issues and, you name it, we've been going through it through the pandemic. It's uncovered a lot of issues. At some point, it might make sense for us to operate our own plant. It has never been a priority for us. But I always say it's really important to have options as an entrepreneur. If you're not setting your operation up to have various directions that you can move and pivot into, if one thing doesn't pan out, is important. And I think, we never have this like singular vision of like, oh, we'll never own our own plant. If at some point it makes all the sense in the world for us to do that, like we're open to continuing to insulate ourselves from external challenges and really doubling down and taking ownership of key pieces that'll help us create a more profitable and more efficient business.
As your brand grows and, your culture really is the driving or the big attractor, to the company, that's when a manufacturing plant, if you can afford it, if it makes sense in your budget, that could help you overcome labor problems and supply chain problems, because no doubt your culture would be better than, say, a co-packer's culture, right? And that could be one of those advantages, a competitive advantage for you in the labor market. If you don't have to go that way now, that's fine. But I'm sure you've thought about that.
Absolutely.
Your competitive advantage, your value proposition in a lot of ways is your culture. You've mentioned it all the way through. So I think it's important for people to realize that's one of those carefully weighed out decisions.
Yeah, no. And just, on a related note, I'm sure you've seen where we have a scoop shop. We have an actual retail location in
Correct.
Austin in our home market. And that's kind of been, that's been our first introduction to running a separate entity, same brand, same products, same team. But when you're running an entirely different entity, the labor force that powers our shop is in many ways very different than our corporate office environment, and really having to unite everybody around the corporate culture is important, but it's challenging. And so I feel like we've already kind of dipped our toe into understanding what that could look like. Having that experience with the scoop shop, I think, has definitely given us some insights into what potentially running a plant could look like, right? Really having that added challenge of uniting all of your people around that common goal, common vision, common culture, even though they're working on different sides of the wall. That's an added challenge, but it's an important one to understand if you want to prepare yourself to be prepared for whatever the future might hold. And we just want to continue to make the best decisions possible for all stakeholders, to maximize value and maximize value to our customers.
Well, it sounds like with all the different plates that you have to spin on a daily basis to keep the company running and on track, it sounds like you probably are using a superpower to, kind of keep everything together. So have you given any more thought to my question? What is your superpower?
I'll have to say my initial thought was like, you're really limiting me to only one superpower. Sometimes I think I have multiple superpowers just after a tough week of work, but no, I
forgot. I'm dealing with Texas. I should have said how many superpowers, or name your top five.
Your top
I apologize, Daniel. I totally blew it.
No, that's a great question. And I really humble myself to knowing that I have a lot of work to do and a lot of growth to continue to take on as as we navigate the future. But I think one of my superpowers, it actually became more apparent to me than ever through my journey here with the company that my empathy, I really feel like empathy is a strong, innate characteristic that I've always had. I can even tell you a really funny story about, I should have known at that moment how empathetic I was as a human. But I want to say it was in the 4th grade. We were reading a book on, I want to say it was on diabetes. And there was, we were reading this story, and the poor character in the book had diabetes and was, it was intensifying, and they got gangrene, and they started talking about amputation and all these things. And we're here reading this book in a classroom full of 4th graders with our teacher. And I started feeling sick, like really sick. I felt, I think my face probably turned pale. I was really just internalizing all of what we were reading in this book. And I raised my hand and was like, teacher, could I go to the nurse? I'm not feeling well. She's like, no, Daniel, like wait till we finish the book. And I tried, I put my hand back down, kept diving back into the material. It was making me feel even more and more sick. I raised my hand again, please, like I really don't feel well. Would you let me go to the nurse? I think she said no again. And the third time, finally, I think she saw my face this time, saw the urgency on my face. My face was pale. I kind of had even broken out into a cold sweat, and she's like, okay, like go to the nurse. And I go to the nurse that day. My mom actually worked at the elementary school that I was going to at the time. The nurse starts taking all my vitals and asking me questions. They call my mom into the nurse's office, and they ask my mom, like, does your son have diabetes? And my mom was like, no, like he absolutely does not. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh.
She's like, he literally has all of the symptoms of diabetes right now. And I was like, holy cow. Like I literally gave myself diabetes by reading a story in fourth grade with my class about a person who was struggling very, very, significantly with
hopefully
diabetes.
The symptoms went away, right? And all is well.
Yes. Yeah. Things are well now, but I think, that experience, I probably didn't really understand it for everything it was now, but I have an incredible amount of empathy. I think, and that's, I run the organization that way too. When we listen to our people, we try to put ourselves in their shoes. We try to view their perspective, and really just, kind of internalizing all of that and letting that help make better decisions for the collective, I think, has been something that I've used to my advantage, throughout this period.
Well, you may have more than one superpower, but I don't think, I think you can lead with that.
No. And I think it's becoming more and more clear in our world today that empathy, that empathetic leaders are really beginning to lead the way. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or, whatever, Myers-Briggs or whatever assessment you want to take and find out who you are.
Clifton, everyone's heard me talk about the Clifton Strengths Finder. That's my choice.
Yeah. And, we all have, we're all so different and we're all wired differently. And I really think that empathy, to really ensure that we are leading ourselves down the right path, that we're allowing everybody to really have a voice and we're internalizing those feedback loops and using it to really make better decisions for the greater good. I think it's going to be critical to the future of the world that we live in. And so, yeah, I'm definitely grateful that I was just born wired to be an empathetic being, and I really value that characteristic very much.
I think as servant leadership becomes more and more understood and accepted within the executive ranks, I think we'll find that the quality and the superpower of empathy is really needed to be that servant leader. And for those of you who may not identify with being empathetic, I think this is a good example of why you do want to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And a servant leader comes down right next to the person and theoretically kind of puts their arm around them and walks with them and helps them through whatever challenges that they're having. You may already have the answer for them, but you're there as they discover what they should be doing, right? And then they can develop themselves as a person rather than they have a problem and they're not going to come to you and talk about it. The problem festers. Or maybe you just swoop in and try to fix it and they've not had a chance to grow. So I think I think your superpower of being an empath really helps that servant leader kind of flourish, which I think could lead us to our final topic here is, as we begin to wrap up here, is in the talent space. And that's, how can you help a hiring leader? And I think, frankly, you've already helped a lot just through your story and your backstory and kind of how you manage and run a company. I think you've already taught a lot in that space. But I would love to hear kind of your closing thoughts around, how could you help a hiring leader at this point?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. To be quite frank, as you know very clearly, hiring talent is I mean, it's a difficult task. Like really assessing talent, assessing people's characters, their skills, looking at their experience. It's really difficult. It's one of the more, I still have not mastered the hiring process. I think we've certainly gotten better. But for me, I mean, one of the things that I look at the most, assuming skills and experience are all mostly aligned across a swath of candidates, like when I know we have a good field of candidates, I really lean more into who do I think will be the best cultural fit. Like who seems more like a NadaMoo person? Like our brand has a personality. Our company as currently stands has a certain personality. And so I really try to lean in and assess whether or not I can envision that person as working in to the organization as a part of the whole. And do I see added value? Do I see compatibility in their character traits and those of the collective of the rest of the team members of the organization?
Have you created questions? Have you created a battery of maybe behavioral questions that you like to ask to uncover those character traits? It's somewhere I could probably use some help in it's that. Very hard. And I'm not trying to expose a weakness here by any means, because we do it for a living, and when we hear when we work with a new client and we're hearing about their culture, the first thing I'm tasked with doing is I need to create behavioral questions that aren't leading. I don't want to give away, what I'm going for, and really elicit some honest, genuine responses from people. And I will tell you, when people speak in hypotheticals, then they've not experienced it. If they say, well, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
they're either just making something up on the fly, or they have some inkling of an idea of what they would do if they ever experience that, and that's not quite enough.
That's not quite someone who's living your values.
Yeah,
and that's sort of the trick. And I, perhaps that's a podcast for another time. Maybe I could bring on some career coaches and some people who've just spent a lifetime of doing, just that. And, we pull from those people, we pull from assessments, we pull from, third parties to kind of dial those questions in, because it is important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think we can leave it at that. I think by all means you focus on culture, but the way to do it though is through behavioral questions, and just to see, have they been living the values? And if they give you very specific examples of how they've lived it, then you have a better idea.
Yeah. I mean, one behavioral question, I love that you tied in values, because I come up with a lot of questions, especially we just hired a new VP of marketing, which is really, really exciting. But I ended up asking a lot of questions that tie back specifically to our 5 core values as a company, like just making sure that I can get a feel for whether or not their values resonate and align with our values by asking questions that tie back to them. But one question that I really like that's more behavioral is like, how do people deal with conflict or with difficult situations, and like really giving clear examples of a difficult moment that they've been through, and how they learn to get through that, and what proactive steps they took to ensure that that they put that issue to bed. And I think that's important, because conflict arises all the time within an organization. people's communication styles, a specific work-related problem, and when people don't deal very well with those sorts of issues, or they become very difficult and can be hard to work with in those moments, like that can create pretty serious issues. And so that's definitely one that I like to lean into. Yeah. And toxicity within an organization is so destructive, so destructive.
Bad news. And I love that's a great example. And I find the trick is, so even when you do come up with the question, then you have to settle on what do you think the best answers would be. And that's going to be different for everybody. But you kind of have to take yourself through, how would you answer it? How do you do it? How have other people done it successfully? So you kind of have a catalog of these are the 3-4 best answers or styles that we think someone should handle that problem. And then you kind of assess, you almost need a scorecard really at that point. And you have a 1 to 5, 5 being the best answer. And you just score people across that spectrum of 1 to 5. And maybe you've got, 10 questions overall. So when someone meets with the entire leadership team, everyone's working with that scorecard, and they can go back and kind of look at how they have answered those questions, and they've got their, they've kind of given them a number score, because otherwise it's very difficult to analyze, candidate A to B to C to D. You have to have that scorecard. Otherwise, well, I think that person answered that question pretty well. Okay, well, I can't make a decision on that.
Yeah, it becomes way too
subjective.
Too subjective.
Yeah, and we're trying to make it more objective. So, well, as we are now out of time, let's wrap up with a couple things. Do you have any key hiring needs that you'd like to put out for people to maybe send a resume over? And secondly, what's the best way for people to follow you guys? I know you're on Instagram. Maybe you give us some of your handles, and people can kind of follow you guys and maybe get a link to the website for some great ice cream.
No, those are great questions. So definitely marketing is a major focus of ours right now. As I just touched on, just hired a new leader for that department. We'll probably be looking to make some additional hires to round out that new team. We've effectively kind of rebuilding that department because it's a critical part of our growth plan. And we're also diving deep into product innovation. So people with product innovation experience either on the ops side or on the marketing side, I think are critical moving forward from here. And what was the second part to your question?
Handles, like socials, the best ways to connect with you.
Yeah. I think the best place to go if you've never heard of our brand, or if you're more interested in our brand now, I think is our website. That's where the most information is. It's www.NadaMoo.com. We have a store finder there where you can find NadaMoo closest to you. Just put your zip code in or your address. We also have an e-commerce set up where you can order NadaMoo pints to be delivered directly to your doorstep. Read up on the company, what's important to us. See some great headshots of our team members.
I saw those. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
You're going to have people go and look at them. It's very clever what they've done. And for you, I'll tag your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and definitely go to our Instagram handle at NadaMoo. Me personally at NadaMoo Dan is my handle, and yeah, we love to hear from people who have either purchased our brand before or are interested in purchasing our product now or in the future. Visit our website, look for us on social media. It's we're NadaMoo, and for now we are in the frozen dessert space and look forward to beginning to launch some new items into some new and fun categories.
It sounds like we have a little bit of breaking news here on Winning at Work. If you're expanding, I love it. Hopefully this is the tipping point for you guys. Well, Daniel, absolutely fantastic to have another conversation with you, this time recorded so everyone can hear this great story and kind of get behind you and your brand. And, I encourage people to become brand evangelists and, go ahead and get out there, try the product, find something that you like, that you love, get behind it. And this is how you help spread the influence, particularly if you believe in the mission. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us here today on Winning at Work.
Tony, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate your time.
Talk to you soon.